Welcome along to our council meeting for the 29th of April 2026 as the year marches on. We are going to kick off the morning, please, with a karakia from Councillor Brown.
Tuia ki ronga, tuia ki raro, tuia ki waho, tuia ki roto, tuia ki te heri tangata, I rongo te pō. Rongo te au, Premier, tuia, tākia.
Thank you very much. No apology this morning, which is great news. We have a full house. We are going to kick straight into the public forum, and we have one person joining us online, but she has not managed to achieve that just yet. So we welcome Phil Murray from Cones. Phil,
good morning.
nice to see you.
So I'm Phil Murray here, co-chair of the Central Otago Environmental Society. Coes holds great concerns for the ecological health of the Menehira River. In light of the council proposal to promote and financially support replacement of Falls Dam with one that holds 3 times more water than the existing one. Water quality in the Menehira catchment has been declining over the past decade and longer, in line with the quite rapid intensification land use facilitated by water extraction from the catchment. And this land use has been notably into dairy and dairy support, as this has been the most profitable land use. Falls Dam requires replacing because of its age, and that's accepted. However, a study commissioned by the irrigators in 2017 found that the replacement dam at the same level as the existing one was uneconomic and unaffordable for the irrigators. It is therefore understandable that a dam 3 times the volume would be equally unaffordable to the irrigators. Coes cannot understand how, if this is the case, a replacement larger dam than the existing dam justifies the use of taxpayer and ratepayer subsidy. Where is the benefit to the wider community when the unavoidable consequences of such a dam will be an acceleration of the decline in water quality and ecological health of the Menehira and its tributaries? A continuation of the decline in water quality in the catchment is unavoidable because such a dam will result in more than doubling in the irrigated land area, most likely into pasture and pasture feed crops, supporting dairy and dairy support, because this is the current and most likely profitable land use. It is the most profitable to the individual landowner, but not to the community when all costs are accounted. There is currently no comprehensive minimum flow regime for the catchment, which the scientists suggest needs to include a minimal flow at the Alexandra Bridge of 2.5 cumecs. And there are no rules restricting winter feed crops being established on highly porous alluvial soils near the river. Under the current economic and legal framework, the further eutrophication of the Menehira and its tributaries is guaranteed, as per Canterbury and Southland, and we know what's going on there. In a community where the majority of the people came here to live because of the quality of the environment, and secondly, to get out in that environment, it makes no sense that the wider community use its funds to subsidise a dam such as being proposed that will degrade its environment. It would be economically and ecologically irrational for it to do so. What you're doing in subsidising the irrigation infrastructure in Central Otago is attempting to facilitate a land use that belongs in places where it rains a lot. To create a similar environment in Central Otago to that which exists naturally in Southland and the Waikato is expensive. And further to that, requires expensive treatment for use as drinking water at the ratepayer's expense. We in effect are paying twice for what we had before irrigation became a fact. Manihira irrigation scheme in Falls Dam was a result of economics distorted by government subsidy when it was originally established. And what you're doing is perpetuating that distortion. What is a rational land use in Central Otago to pose is land uses that are profitable and trade on the inherent qualities of their environment without degrading it. Examples of that are horticulture, viticulture, dryland farming that strategically uses irrigation for pinch periods, and certain types of tourism. Land uses that can't afford to pay for the infrastructure that supports it should not be encouraged. There is no rational argument for the community subsidising water abstraction for intensive dairy and dairy support in dry Central Otago, and then having to treat it to make it drinkable for rural town supply. Arguments around having a larger dam to provide environmental flows are absurd when the natural mean annual low flow is estimated to be 4 cumecs at the Alexandra campground. You are proposing that the community pay for mitigating the effects of the private taking of a public resource in water. This is classic privatising the profits while socialising the costs. A replacement Falls Dam will benefit a few while degrading an important community resource, valuable to the wider community, that provides quality of life now and other more sustainable economic options for the future. Oppose that sees the council support for a bill to Parliament which would take decisions around the creation of a Falls Dam out of the hands of the community as a betrayal of local democracy, making the community subservient to a narrow central government agenda. And I'd just like to say that we're well aware of the trade-offs that are made in maintaining an economy, but it's very important that the community who has an interest in the common property resource of the water is actually included in the discussions around those trade-offs. So much.
Thank you very much, Phil. You nailed that time slot. Well done. Has anybody got any questions for Phil? Tracy?
I do. Phil, have you spoken to ILCO's, whether it's yourself or the group, spoken to Jeff Grant, who's leading that project?
No, but we are speaking to someone this afternoon on that. Yeah.
So Jeff Grant's the person who's leading that.
We haven't spoken to Jeff Grant, and Jeff Grant certainly hasn't made contact with us.
Okay. And then also the comment about the 4 cumecs as the natural flow of the river. What science were you basing that on?
That is the Otago Regional Council conclusion that came out in the scenarios report. It's a conclusion that all the scientists that were put together to produce that report concluded.
I've got a question. The minimum flow as it is today was set by the Environment Court, correct?
Jeff.
Well, last time I had a meeting at Turihua.
There is no minimum flow at the Alexandra campground. There's a minimum flow at Ophir, 0.8 of a cubic, but there's no minimum flow at the Alexandra campground.
It's an interesting conversation that horticulture and viticulture require as much water per hectare as anything else. I was very, very closely involved with the late Brian Turner, who had very big discussions about the Manihira, as a passionate river it is, and he was all for irrigation, but in a context where intergenerational businesses could survive.
Yes.
I would be the first person to want to use ratepayers' money to make sure we get that balance right.
Yeah.
Because I think this table has responsibility to the community, where the irrigators might have a responsibility to their balance sheet, the environmentalists might have a responsibility, and they're probably a long way away. So by having a democratic elected group and having balance in the debate, we'll take on all that. So I'm a big fan that even us having that discussion, and the discussion Ramfley was about making sure we were independent of the irrigation company for the funding, and that way we will meet some middle ground and understand that. So it's going back to we're not in that valley in the sense of the Minnetonka, but when I was at a function one day that's right down here into Galloway, right down here into Alexandria, Springvale Road, lifestyle blocks use irrigation water for beautification. We've had as much growth out of Central Otago, and as a result of some of it being in agriculture, but water is key. So I think it's very important that if we have to replace this, and I look in our corner there, we could have Lake Roo of Taniwha, where we can have international rowing meetings. We could have tourism. We've got Hotokai National Park right in our back door, where so some of these things, the Falls Dam being enhanced, will greatly appreciate tourism if it's managed properly.
Sure.
So I think everyone's taking that balance.
Sure. We're not against irrigation, but we are for aligning the economy with the ecological capacity of the river. Yeah.
Thank you, Phil. And just for the hundreds of people that were no doubt watching online, I'll just point out that no decision has yet been made to 100% pursue that as an option, and we're just investigating it at this stage. But really appreciate you coming to speak to us. Thank you very much. Has Alyssa joined us online? No, not yet. In that case, we will move please to Jerry Eckhoff.
Good morning. I'm almost tempted to change the subject from what I was going to talk about.
No, it's your 5 minutes.
Discuss a bit about the old favourite of water. I just point out I use this to adjust my hearing. I've come here to talk about a very topical subject, I guess, that's probably now past, but it concerned me so much because it's been a hobby horse of mine for many years. It goes back to 1924, and this was a judgment that was made by the Lord Chief Justice in the UK in a matter that I believe is pertinent not just to this council, of course, not just to this council, but councils all over New Zealand, especially the ORC that I had 9 years involved with. So in the interest of time, I've written some words. Has there ever been an issue that has united this town, the district, and possibly even the region, like the restoration of the Earnscleugh homestead? Has there ever been a situation of having 100% of the submissions and strong approval of the owner's plans? So what was the purpose of the hearing in front of your own councillors who appeared to fully accept the advice of a council commissioned heritage company person? Not sure what it was. And what are we, the people, to make of that? One would have hoped that the council could have adopted a position of welcome to the district, gentlemen, owners of the Earnscleugh property. Now, what can we do to help? It appears to me that perhaps quite the opposite has happened. We all know what was in this paper. Despite the Heritage Trust giving their approval of the restoration plans. So, and I know we're going back a few years now. So the council found a consultant, and I hesitate to use that description, at cost to the ratepayer to present opinion, since shown to be wrong, the council's own hearing commissioners. So my purpose here today is the hope of imparting some knowledge on these sorts of matters, and indeed to councillors everywhere, information that I think they desperately need to understand and adopt, and here's why. In 1924, Lord Hewitt, the Lord Chief Justice in the UK, delivered a judgment that has come down the age. Judgment went global wherever justice has been served. It is today supremely relevant, not just in the law courts, but relevant to councils and all of those who hold authority. A case was heard in the UK before magistrates who sought the assistance of a law clerk from one of the barristers' firms arguing the case, but only when they retired to consider their verdict. Once that assistance and verdict had become known, the law firm appealed and the case went before the highest court in the land, presiding Lord Hewitt. Importantly, no suggestion was ever made that there was any wrongful intent by anyone. Anyone, the magistrates, the clerk of the court, nobody. Yet the appeal was upheld. And it applies so much to local government this day. And I'm sure there is no wrongful intent in local government. Here it said in his judgment, and I'm sure you've heard of this, it is not only of some importance, that it is of fundamental importance that not only must justice be done, it must be manifestly and undoubtedly be seen to be done. And that's the important piece. This legal maxim is now applied globally to maintain trust in judicial or quasi-judicial institutions where formal judgments are heard and delivered. The significance of that judgment is that it serves as a cornerstone of natural justice, emphasising the perception of fairness, of, yes, council processes to the applicant as well. And as I say, it is important as the actual fairness of the hearing. Perception and reality, they are intertwined completely. And that is one of the important parts of this judgment. No authority, no person, no authority can write their own rules, plans, we could call them, and be an accuser, a witness, and a judge in the same matter. Yet councils do. All councils do. The law has been designed to prevent allegations of bias and unfairness and inherent conflicts of interest. So how is it possible for council-appointed panels to adopt council evidence, or was that just just a perception? You all know the huge support the owners have received from the public and the Historic Places Trust. So why did the council fund their own heritage advisor? The hearing panel.
That's your 5 minutes. Have you got a last comment that you would like?
Well, I've only just gone a little bit.
That's fine.
The hearing panel and their recommendation to council appeared to be focused on the report the council commissioned, which contained so many inaccurate observations at some cost to the ratepayer. Does that matter? Oh, yes, it does. As an aside, I've decided this opinion piece and more is going to go to the Minister of Justice and the Law Society. I don't really expect any retrospective action taken by the council at all. But I ask of you to think long and hard before matters of this nature or others, and the cost that is imposed through delay in the use of the bureaucratic grinder. Finally, can I ask you to consider adopting this logo? Hello. We're from the council. Now, what can we do to help? Not, as one of my colleagues pointed out, this is a land of indifference. It's not my comment, it was his. I wish it was mine, but it's not. Councils write rules called district plans, employ staff and ensure the rules are complied with. Fair enough. But then appoint a hearing panel from within the council to hear an application. Not even our parliament dare do that. Thank you for your...
And when you are writing to the Minister of Justice, might I suggest you also write to the Minister of RMA Reform, the Honourable Chris Bishop, and suggest that the changes that he is proposing for the RMA reform come through. And I would just like to note as well.
It will go. It will. It's going to be twice the 3 times the size. But I had to. Sorry, I had to go over time. But I had to praise it down to try and get the pertinent things that. Perception about bias. And
I have let you go over time, Jerry.
No allegation of bias at all. It's the perception.
Yep, and I would also point out, and you might like to just do a little bit of homework on this, the independent expert that you've seemed to think that council plucked out from the middle of nowhere was recommended by Heritage New Zealand as the foremost expert for that type of renovation. So thank you for your thoughts. And we do need to just answer that. It wasn't a question, it was a statement.
Balance that with the fact that 100% of the local people said go right ahead with what you want to do.
Yes, they
I
did.
don't believe there was a need.
And the consent was issued by following due process, and they have continued on with their wonderful
You have a
restoration.
choice,
So,
Madam Mayor. You have a
thank you
choice.
very much. And now we will need to move to online, where we have Melissa Harrington from Kidney New Zealand, who will speak to their grant application.
I hope you'll be hearing from me later on.
Thank you, Jerry.
Put it on speaker. I said, it's the 10 scariest words.
Good morning, Alyssa. Nice to have you join us.
Good morning. I'm so sorry for my issues joining you today. I've been trying to join for the past 20 minutes. Just a bit of a technological issue.
That's fine. When it works, it's great. And when it doesn't, it's very challenging. So we can all hear you, and you do have 5 minutes.
Do and why we do what we do. And then feel free to ask me any questions that you may have. So we provide free community testing for kidney disease, which is actually one of the third fastest growing internationally known disease within youth. There's 85% of New Zealand's organ donation waiting list. So it's very important for us. It is often overlooked. We get no government funding. We do this sort of thing nationwide. What we do is we go out into communities and we do what we call a metabolic panel. So there's a blood pressure screen, a blood glucose test, a EGFR test, and a creatinine test. So this is all just like you would have at the GP, a blood pressure cuff around your arm, and then one finger prick to test the other 3 readings here. And what this does is it gives us a really good snapshot of how your kidneys are filtering and functioning. This is incredibly important because when it's caught early, kidney disease can be slowed and even halted through minor lifestyle changes. But when it's not caught early, which is what we're seeing now with this kidney crisis that's going on across New Zealand, you will end up inevitably on dialysis and needing transplant, which is why the waiting list is so high. And you may have seen stories in the news about dialysis centres being really understaffed, underfunded, and some even needing to ration out their dialysis, which is not good. People are sitting on these machines at least 3 times a week for 5 hours at a time. And some of them need to travel upwards of 4 to 5 hours to receive this treatment several times a week. So it really harms people's livelihoods with their work, their stress, their finances, their family connections, their friendships. It's really, really devastating. So sad. So we can actually prevent people from ending up at that stage with this work that we do. So yeah, we do that. And then we give tailored support and advice. We partner with events and workplaces in the community to bring against your regions. And we keep those relationships going. We provide upskilling for local health professionals as well to increase your community capability and resilience. So eventually we would love to have nurses that are just located in your region and provide testing year round for your region. That is really our goal at the moment. Disproportionately affected groups in New Zealand by kidney disease. So Māori, Pacific Islanders and descent, those who live rurally, in social isolation, or in lower socioeconomic conditions. So we're really reaching out to quite a large number of the population. A large number reside in your area as well. So we've got like the sharing population in Alexandra and that. So you guys are a really high risk need group at the moment for us. And we would just love to bring our services to you, to your community, and to really build your capabilities to do this testing for your movement. Questions for me?
Thank you very much, Alyssa. We are acutely aware of the postcode lottery that is the health service in this region, and we are drastically underserved by basically every type of ailment you can have. And yep, there is certainly an enthusiasm for more services, and we would welcome those resources that you provide to be provided to the people of Central Otago closer to home than they currently travel, which is a significant distance. Has anybody got questions for? Well covered. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for your time. Have a lovely day.
Cheers, you too.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, team. We will move to the confirmation of minutes, please, which begin on page 5 from our council meeting 25th of March. Tracy's happy to move those. Thank you, Tracy. Seconded Sarah. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Declarations of interest begin on page 21. Has anybody got anything that they want to note that's coming up today? In fact, just a reminder to regularly check those and let Wayne know if anything has changed and step aside from any decision making or chat that may be perceived with a interest. Next, we are delighted to have the Community Board Chair from Cromwell, Anna Harrison, join us because there is quite a lot from Cromwell on the agenda today. So, Anna, welcome. Yes. Please come up. Yeah, come and join us.
I like the back row. It's quite a good place for laughing.
Just to share it with somebody.
Yeah, true. True that. Good morning. Kia ora koutou, ngā mihi nui, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm mostly here to speak on behalf of the Cromwell Community Board in relation to the item that you're considering today on the naming of the fabulous new facility in Cromwell. The Anzac service gave us a sneak peek at how amazing this place is. The memorial gardens were immaculate, and I really want to acknowledge the work that the Naylor Love team have done and their subcontractors that they've put in to get it ready in time for Anzac Day. That was no mean feat, and I know that they had contractors on site over Easter and over many weekends just to make sure that we were able to meet that obligation of having our first Anzac service cenotaph in its new site this year. And it was outstanding. It is really wonderful to see the cenotaph in its new home. And I think we've honoured the memorial beautifully for our community. And I felt honoured to stand with the RSA representing our community alongside Tracy as Deputy Mayor at this event. So now on to that business of today. The board considered the naming of the new facility at our meeting on April the 7th. And we knew that having made the decision to go to community consultation, that it was really important that we take the views of our community into account and to choose a name that's highly representative of what our community's asked for. We listened to what was said as part of the consultation process and in our conversations around the community and looking at online forums. And one of the biggest bits of feedback was, what's the point of participating if no one's going to listen to you? So we took that feedback very seriously and think that the name that we have put forward, Cromwell Memorial Events Centre, does just that, that it is highly representative of what our community has asked for. Feedback from our community overwhelmingly supported the use of Cromwell in the name, and the majority of the feedback, as expected, did come from the Cromwell ward, but this was a clear preference that was made. The use of centre was also a popular choice and gives a nod to this fabulous new building being much, much more than a hall. The words memorial and event also featured strongly in the feedback, and many of our community expressed that they were keen to have memorial used to honour the legacy of the hall that stood in the place of the new facility. The board debate around giving the building a title as had been suggested by some respondents, was pretty strong. So we really considered that notion that it needs a title, and then something like Cromwell Memorial Event Centre describes where it is and what it does. And we did give consideration particularly to the title, The Junction, which seemed to sit well with where the facility is sitting, with Cromwell Memorial Event Centre being included under that. But we were concerned that we were going to start having a name that was several paragraphs long or akin to a bit of a novel, which does make it hard to fit on the side of even a very large building, but also makes it hard to know exactly what you're going to call the building. Knowing that we were also we'd also made that decision about dual naming. So a Te Reo name was to follow our decision. So felt that giving it a title and Cromwell Memorial Event Centre and a Te Reo name would just have meant that we had too many extra things to consider there. So I suppose what I'm really here to do today is to put some context behind the decision that the Cromwell Community Board made and why they've made the recommendation that they have to this council. We know that the Central Otago community will be contributing to the cost of the running of the centre. We know that that was a consideration for you, and whether or not, therefore, the name of the building should include Central Otago rather than Cromwell. So our decision making, we debated that too. We thought a lot about where that sits and what's a marketable name. We had thought about whether, that Central Otago is a known district, as Cromwell is lesser known than the whole district. But in the end, with putting the word memorial in there, it made more sense to have the word Cromwell next to that, because the memorial that we're honouring is the memorial in Cromwell, not the memorial across the whole of Central Otago. That's sort of where our decision making came from. I haven't really got a lot of else to update you with. The hall, the event centre, the memorial gardens have been the main part of our business over the last little while. There's lots of other things, of course, happening in the background in Cromwell but those are decisions that are going to come back to us at our meeting next week around harvesting of trees, industrial estates, Deer Ave, which you will then have the pleasure of looking at when you come into your May meeting. But the event centre has very much been the centre of our business at the moment.
Thank you very much. Has anybody got any questions for Anna?
I'd just reiterate that it was, the RSA did a phenomenal job, and it was majority of it was exceptional.
It was exceptional. Fine Time Bells are wonderful.
Oh.
They make the event, and Rachel's voice is.
I think we need to put her
amazing.
up for doing the national anthem at some of our rugby games.
Yeah,
She was exceptional.
she was absolutely exceptional. I think that it's a long walk. The new parade is a really long walk. You feel quite exposed as you wander down there. I know Wally Sanford took a photo of Tracy and I going down there. We are perfectly in step.
Oh, there you go.
Military precision for us, Tracy. We did very, very well. But it's beautiful. All of the things that have been added in there. On the parade ground, behind the wall behind with the ode in English and Te Reo, the names of the fallen, it's really made the cenotaph, it glows in the sky. It's fantastic. So thanks, Tracy.
In your discussions, how close was the use of the hall?
Not at all. The hall really didn't feature from our community. I think initially the groups that were keen for the word memorial to be there also wanted the word hall. I think a lot of those people took the opportunity to watch the video that we had produced that showed what was happening on the inside, or to go on a tour of the facility, and then went, actually, it's more than a hall. Let's move our thinking from there, being just a hall, because it is a lot more than a hall. It's looking amazing on the inside as well. I was given a little sneak through on Saturday after the.
Because all the submissions, there's only 20 people difference between the event centre and hall from a memorial.
That was only the ones that said specifically their choice of name, so they wrote their name out, and that was 51 people wrote on the events. And then there was a second part to it that you could choose each bit.
Yeah, so in the choosing of each bit,
That's right.
centre came out much more strongly than hall. So yes, there were submitters who said, no, I've chosen the name and that name can only be this. And so that's what they put in there.
372 people said centre and 80 said hall. Part 3. That's where that.
Yeah. And I think that's probably where the views of the community board may have differed from some of those members of the community, where if the feedback had come back as completely, yes, we want to call it a hall, we would have gone, is it though? Because I don't think it is.
It's easy.
Oh, I was just going to say that photograph that Wally took showing you and Tracy in step. I'm just hoping that that carries over to the discussion that we have later.
For joining us this morning, Anna, we really appreciate you coming down in person. I know we will be eagerly awaiting to hear when we say what the gifted name is from Mana Whenua as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I might hang around for a little bit.
Those kids are fine.
Good idea.
Those kids are fine.
Right, I'm going to hand over the community vision and experience.
Whoa.
Do you want to lead this part too? I know, I didn't even write your name down. This is miraculous.
Thank you, man. All right, no, where are we then? 26.4.3. 25, 26 district-wide grant applications. We just heard from one of the applications there. Paula, take us through it.
Good morning. I'm here on behalf of Rebecca Williams to present her report that she threw on your agenda for the second round of community grants for our Central Otago District Council. So the purpose of these community grants are to enhance wellbeing and to empower our local communities. They're a hand up and to help people lift and do the things that we need to do in our district. The district grant funding round is things that impact the whole of our district as opposed to our ward grants, which are more locally into our communities. In our first funding round, we generally get our bigger agencies, and that generally takes up the lion's shares of the funds. This year, we had remaining funds left over from our first funding round, so there was 34,000 that we could advertise for applicants to apply for. This funding round, we received 3 applications. You've heard from the Kidney Health New Zealand, we had Southern Cancer Society and Bowel Cancer New Zealand. Bowel Cancer New Zealand and Kidney Society do not receive government funding, and Southern Cancer Society is a NGO. So they're all doing great work in our community and are well needed services that do provide for the wellbeing of our Central Otago communities. In the report, you will notice there's a recommendation of decline. The reason for this is because based on staff's advice is based on precedent and standards and what we've done in the past. And traditionally, we don't fund healthcare from this fund because it's such a small amount of money and it doesn't stretch very far. This is a community funding round though, and it's obviously up to elected members to decide what you would.
Thank you. Has anybody got any questions of Paula?
Yes, sorry, I was just going to ask, I know the recommendation is that we don't actually grant the funding. Is there any reason why we shouldn't, apart from what you've said? I mean, surely I would have thought there's 34,000 odd dollars there that could be used for the benefit of the community. All of these things are actually benefiting the health of our communities. So I can't see any reason why we couldn't do that. I would have thought that generally speaking, the consideration about whether we support something is whether we have the funds available or not.
Martin?
The problem I have with this sort of application is that we pay taxes, central government to provide health services. I think it's a case of double dipping. And I'm not in favour of rates being used to fund what is basically the central government's responsibility. It's a very thin end of the wedge. You start doing that, just
don't we have to consider that central government are not doing that? Somebody has to do it.
I don't think there's any issue of the importance of these projects. That's definitely not something that's on the table and how relevant they are. But just following on from Martin, we have historically, and I'm not saying that has to continue, but historically we have said that that council rates should not be funding this, and especially in grants. We've got no ability to know exactly how many it turns into an administrative fund that we're funding operational costs for administration. So we've got no control over that. And we've had other excellent applicants in the past that we've turned down for the exact same reason. And we've got other papers coming at us today that are a direct request in relation to people that live here that will directly look after them. So I have a little bit of a problem with funding a national entity where it's an operational cost as opposed to that. But as I say, it is not judgment on the exceptional work they do. It's just tough. Sorry.
I think that's probably where I sit as well, is that in the past, for those reasons, we haven't funded national health service providers, whether or not they are a charity or affiliated to a national body, but we do support local health services. For example, this council has previously supported Dunstan Hospital with administration costs for overseeing their board and the like. So I think when it's something that is for just this community, there has been a different conversation in the past, but when it's something that's a national body operating in our area alongside the rest of the country, I think that does fall into a bit of a different basket in terms of what our community are expected to contribute.
I would agree.
So if that's a process and we've got 3 applicants for something that we wouldn't normally give money to, are we not indicating to them that this is not something that we entertain? And that should be looked at, changed.
We have done that in the past. So other national organisations have applied to us and they are usually aware that this is not something that, but there's nothing that says, that prevents them from putting in an application.
Yeah. Why not? Yeah.
And unfortunately, everybody's short of money, and doesn't matter what government's in place, but you pretty much can guarantee that every health service is short of cash.
Takes us time too. So be appreciative of ourselves as well.
Where does this money end up if it doesn't get allocated? Just general funds?
Community grants are funded from the general rate.
So it just goes back into that general reserve.
And
So
just in response to your suggestion, councillor, around circumventing these, they are a community grant process. So if they hit the eligibility criteria, it is elected members' decision on that. And we funds.
So we go through each grant now and make.
They're all in the same lane.
Yeah.
Are we all on the same page there?
Yeah.
So it's all or none in that respect,
Yeah.
the criteria.
Anyone, someone to move that we don't fund the grants? I'll second that.
You already got anything to add to that? All in favour? Any against? Carried. It's tough. Right. 26.4.4, we've got Heather. Welcoming communities.
I'm speaking on
Yeah,
behalf
oh.
of that.
She did look a bit shocked there.
Surprise.
You go.
So thank you. The purpose of this paper today is for council to determine whether it wishes to continue driving the Central Otago Welcoming Communities program. So we've got two options presented in the paper today. One is to request that the program continues an additional 2 years, and this would enable the momentum that we've picked up so far to continue and to continue to delivering the programs that we're doing. There's also an opportunity to consider maybe that we could put funding through the 2027 LTP through the next 3 years, and that would enable us to pick up with our partners some growth and thinking and some innovation that because we have that surety of that program's continuation. The reason why this report is put to you as a proposal to request that this funding is continued is that we are seeing that there's some real benefits from this program, and it has been delivered over these last few years. We know it's a cost-effective program with our partners that we have through REAP, Business South, our Fruit Growers Association, Central App, community houses in both Cromwell and Alexandra. We're able to deliver a lot of more activities than we ever would if it was just a council-driven activity, and we get that direct feed into the communities, into those communities of need. We see demonstrated need and appreciation through even the geography of our district. We're widespread and we're isolated, and with no public transport, our people coming into our districts can be quite dislocated and have difficulties in settling. And even for us in our program trying to tap into particularly the Manitoto and the Teviot Valley, it's tricky because such disparate groups. So we can see that there is an active need for that support for those people, and even for things like the immigration processes, as immigration rules change, as being able to tap into those people and provide that support that's needed. Our newcomer groups are run by volunteers, and that's fantastic, and they do a magical job because they link into that grassroots delivery. But it means that it's one, it's a load on them, but also to newcomers by nature, you want to change and evolve. So as they settle and make their own communities, they move on. And having a welcoming communities coordinator gives a basis for that continued sort of North Star that people can come back to. And we know that initiatives like our Women's Wednesday initiative have really connected and engaged. And that started off as a migrant program to help migrant newcomers who were unfamiliar with musical, cultural or whatever background reason to get in the force. We're finding now we've got obviously our newcomers from other parts of New Zealand, but also our local communities, women from our local communities are embracing this opportunity to get in and get water confident in a non-threatening environment. So we've got a catering for a larger diversity of our community, but also it's allowing the integration of our people within our community. The other thing we see, we're seeing it's a valuable resource for our community. We see that when you've got the settlement gap, we know we've got a 2-year settlement curve in general, and it's helping people settle into that and to ease them through those issues and those challenges that they have. And we also know that our Central Otago communities are on board when we see, for example, we had an Alexandra newcomer network activity out in Como Villa, and we put a Facebook post up on that about 3 weeks ago, and we got 15,000 views, and we got CODC's Facebook page got 15 new followers. So it's working for us. So my proposal today is for council to consider whether we'd like to continue it.
Well, when I left home this morning and I read my agenda last night, I thought, well, we've been whacked with 4% rate rise and we've got to start cutting costs, and where do we cut those costs and be seen by the ratepayer to do it? I'll be in the camp of saying no. And then Tracy and I have quite a lot of agenda meetings in the drive from the hour that takes me to get there. And I guess it goes back to the lottery strategy where you don't realise how much things get used and how many people rely on us to be their link. And then in a ET meeting this morning, staffing's an issue, and some of those staff aren't going to be coming from Peterborough or Dunedin or Christchurch. And I changed to yes, because we do need to make sure we protect the people that are coming here to make sure that they've experienced Central Otago is right. So I'm supportive of it. That they stay. Because it's important, people. So I made a recommendation.
Yeah, well done, Heather. It's an awesome program. It's nice to have such a welcoming person in the welcoming communities. It works pretty well.
Extremely lucky.
We even welcome people
Yes.
from Cromwell.
So option two.
It's not the same the other way around, mate. Depends what you call it all.
Yeah. Option two would still be subject to LTP deliberations.
Yes.
So we would have a second chance to.
Yeah. So in front of you, we've got a, oh, go on, sorry.
Not a question. Well, there is, first of all, just publicly, I want to acknowledge CLT, because obviously they contribute to this program, and so that's very, very much appreciated. I heard a presentation on the radio sometime this week. I don't know where I was listening to it, and it said that the changing demographics of New Zealand as a whole, we need to be more supportive from a nationwide perspective. And I think what we're doing at Central Otago level demonstrates what can be done. So I think that is a really key thing. And in my discussion with Councillor Duncan, I said, you know, we've got so many new people coming, and it's not necessarily, and it's represented in your documentation, that it's not necessarily people from other countries and cultures. It's people from other parts of New Zealand, and they need to be felt. They need to feel as welcome as what everybody does. So there's a really important part there. But what I guess would be interesting for me, I don't know about others to understand, is the numbers of newcomers and how we've got the demographics of New Zealand, but how does it actually come down to numbers for Central Otago? And how does that, you've talked about a few of the programs which are all amazing. It would be good to know how that factors in, just from a numbers perspective, a bit of data around it.
In the appendix, we have some of the infometrics data of our growth rates and things. And we know, even from when we first started out in this program, we did a survey of newcomers, and we did a stock take of what we have here. And we found that the majority of our newcomers are domestics, like about 60%, I think. And then the migrant newcomers are a smaller number, but they have a higher need generally because they don't have the networks or agencies. And this is a pretty remote place to ship to if you're used to these other cultures. So we know that predominantly our newcomers are from other parts of New Zealand, and we can see that. And then the other thing too with our migrant newcomers is sometimes don't look different to us, but they're from another country, so you don't experience it. And we rely on informatics and just to get the information to see what's coming. So we know that our newcomers have ease, but they're still coming.
I guess from a employment perspective, we need to encourage as many people as possible, because we hear from different industries, including where we're sitting around this table, we actually need more people to employ. So it's important that we are encouraging as wide a group of people as possible with the widest group of skills.
From a people side of things, when you consider, like, one of the biggest growing health concerns is loneliness. So watching this program come together, and we've got people that are coming from inside our community, just not newcomers, it's really pleasing and something that we can see that we can take from strength to strength. So a big factor in our community.
You can have that at home at sometimes.
Well, then in that case, Stu, you can come along to a welcoming community. I'd like to, before Sarah takes it to the vote, I would just like to acknowledge the work that Heather has done, because she has been the voice of welcoming communities, and the feedback from those who participate in the program is so overwhelmingly positive, including those people who then go on to become New Zealand citizens, which is great because we do want them to stay here. And I think that this is actually a really important part of the work that council does as placemaking, and I've also be happy to support.
In that case, you've got three recommendations. B is to resolve to extend council's delivery of the Welcoming Communities Programme for a further 2 years through to July 28. And C, consider the inclusion of the Welcoming Communities Programme for 4 years, subject to LTP budget approval. I got it in mind. Stu? Yeah, seconder, Tamith? Yeah, all in favour? Any against? Carried. 2 years' work. Okay.
You're speaking of.
So I haven't seen this many people in the public gallery. Yes. In the interest of robust debate, I am going to hand this back to Lady Mayor to chair. If you would please, 26.4.5, the facility by the lake naming.
I think we're just going to call it the flake and rubber stamp it now. Very excited to have both of you here, and I'll also note that Aroha Novak is online, and I think she would like to speak. So maybe if you would like to introduce this, and then we can hand over to Aroha.
Right.
Thank you. So, of this report today is for council to discuss and decide on the English name for the new facility in Cromwell, considering the Cromwell Community Board's recommendations that Anna's also talked to you about earlier. So today we're also tabling the Te Reo Māori names for the facility and the Cromwell Museum, which have been gifted to us by Mana Whenua. So I'll
Maybe while you're doing that, I'm not sure if we can see Kitty and Aroha. Can we, Wayne, or just introduce Kitty and Aroha to the table as well? They're joining us from Kaha. Partners who have helped us with not only just the design of the hall, but also working through this naming process as well. So without further ado, I might hand over to you, Aroha, to talk us through the Te Reo name. We've handed out hard copies of the Te Reo names to the elected members around the table, and we'll hand over to you to take it from there.
Okay, thank you. Kia ora koutou. It will just be me today. Kitty is in another hui. Ko waio, ko mo ao, ko whakapunaki ngā maunga, ko Wairoa, ko Tauranga ngā awa, ko Ngāti Kahungunu, rawa ko Ngaitirangi oku iwi, e noho ana au ki Otipoti, ko Aroha Novak toku ingoa. Kia ora koutou, my name is Aroha Novak. I'm a design lead here at Ōkaha. If you don't know about Ōkaha, we are a Mana Whenua owned organisation, and we are owned by 5 Papatipu Rūnaka. So those are different Rūnaka throughout the region. They are Otako, which is on the Otago Peninsula, Moeraki, Ka te Huirapa Te Puketeraki, which is Karatane, Waihao, and Hokanui. So we are governed by those 5 Rūnaka, and I work as a design lead, and we have a mandated representative board of Mana Whenua who are experts in cultural advice and whakapapa, te reo Māori, tikanga, and cultural narratives. So part of my mahi, part of my work is to embed cultural narratives into building projects, urban design projects, playgrounds, those kinds of things. So the first thing that our Mana Whenua panel will look at is the site, and if there's any whakapapa and stories relating to that particular site. So that's just, a very brief overview of my role and what I do. And then in terms of this project, I've been working alongside JASMAX and the CODC. So Jen and David there from Central Otago District Council, along with Jennifer Hay from the Cromwell Museum. I'm sure I'm going to forget someone, but there's many people that I work with and fill the dots, I guess, or fill the gaps between working with artists, working with Mana Whenua, and working with a project team. So part of this role is bringing kaitahu artists into a project, and they will visualize the cultural narrative in a way that you'll see through the design outcomes of the building. So I'll just go straight into the te reo naming. So this particular name has been I want to say wānangad, which is kind of like debated or talked about, or, you know, there's been robust discussion around what this name means and how it relates to the facility and to the site and to the cultural narrative. So there's been robust discussion within our mana whenua panel to come to this name. So the name that they have come up with is Te Puna Mahara. So Te Puna Mahara aligns with the story, one of the stories or one of the cultural narratives which are being embedded into this building is about Rākai Hautu. So Rākai Hautu, excuse me, I'm just going to go on a little rant. Is that okay? So Rākai Hautu is a descendant from Waitaha traditions, and so the tradition is that he came to the South Island on the Uru ao Waka with his son. They landed at the top of the South Island, and he said to his son, you go circumnavigate the perimeter of this motu, of this island, and I'll go down the middle. He had with him a large core, which is a large digging stick for, moving earth, and he traversed his way down from the Nelson Lakes, down through the middle, down to Lake Whakatipu and all of those waterways in the central Otago area. And so he is credited for digging out those waterways and those lakes and naming those. There is a prophecy that he said. So he foresaw 3 pools or puna. So Te Puna Hawaitu, Te Puna Waimarie, and Te Puna Karikari. So the pools of frozen water, the pools of bountiful resources, and the pools dug by the hand of man. So this particular whakatauki, that's something that we've brought into the design integration, cultural integration into the building. There is a visual representation of Rākai Hautu's core, which is it's named Tu Whakaroria, and you'll see that at the entranceway of the building as you're walking into Te Puna Mahara. I'm not sure what the English name will be yet. So this name, Te Puna Mahara, directly draws from that whakatauki of the puna. And so puna is pools, but it can also be repositories, so a repository of information, of knowledge, a place to hold wānanga. You can also relate it to a person. A person can be, a puna as well. And so Te Puna Mahara is to mean to recollect or to remember. And so when our mana whenua panel were having their robust discussion around the naming of this in Te Reo Māori, they knew that this was a memorial hall. First and foremost, that was the whakapapa. That's the whakapapa of this space. There is a memorial garden, and also that's a tapu zone for memories and for acknowledging and having a mihi to those who have passed, especially those who have passed in war. And so for the entire name, Te Puna Mahara, aligns with the facility, the space that it is, the whakapapa that it has, as well as what it will be, which is a puna and a place of collecting community and people together in a shared space. And so that is the background to Te Puna Mahara. And I'm happy to stop here and have any questions or comments if anyone has anything to add or ask.
Thank you, Araha. And what we might do is we'll keep the debate for a little bit later, but has anybody got any specific questions around Te Puna Mahara?
Hello, yeah, Nathan's here. With Te Puna Mahara, and then just thinking along the lines of Te Papa Tongarewa up in Wellington, and it gets known as Te Papa. If this was known or referred to, I guess, let's say colloquially or whatever, as Te Puna, is that going to cause any grief?
No, not at all. I think that's it. Actually, that's my own personal opinion. I cannot say that, you know, widely. Sorry, just putting my Okaha hat back on. So my own personal opinion, that is actually completely fine. Having a colloquial name for your space is your prerogative, and that is that's ownership of what you have. So I think that would be totally fine. And Te Puna can, you know, it still works. Te Puna Mahara or Te Puna, it still works in that way.
Well covered. Any other questions, Stu?
Yeah. Stu Duncan here.
Kia ora. Oh, kia ora, Stu.
How you going?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, real good. Real good. I had some big discussions with the auntie the other day over various things, but I'm sure she'll be very proud of the name. How long did it sort of take you, because it is really cool when it understands, and this way you've explained it's exceptionally great. How long did it take you to come to the name?
Well, I can tell you that there was another name last year. So it's been a while, and that's what I mean in terms of the robust discussion that has happened within so with our process, we have our own panel, our own mana whenua panel who we go to for advice. They suggested a name, and then it has to go out to those 5 papatipu runaka who are shareholders of Okaha. So it starts, you know, in a smaller group, and then it has to go wider. And when it went wider, questions came back and more discussion was had, and then that's how they got to Te Puna Mahara, was after a few back and forth, discussions around that. So it's a long time. It takes a long time. Like there's kind of like there's no hard line, but it can take kind of a year. You know, it's taken a long time to have the right name. So yeah, probably a good 8 months.
And then would you like to cover off the name for the museum?
Yeah, sure.
Now as well?
You're going to cover that too, Araha. Just so this is obviously a component of the whole, everybody who hasn't been through. Part of the museum is part of what we're designing and fitted out right now. So Araha, I might just get you, if it's okay, respectfully, to do the highlight reel of that name, just conscious of time as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Rein me in. Okay, so the name that our mana whenua panel have come up with for the Cromwell Museum is Te Huika Wai. So the location of the new event centre is a place where fresh waters meet, the Mata'o, the Kawarau Arm and Te Wairere. So Te Huika means the gathering, or, you know, to gather, and Wai generally means water, but can also refer to people and memories, resources and stories. So it is the meaning of Te Huika Wai is the meeting of these different confluences. it has a connection to the junction, which is another name for that particular area. It also reflects the meeting of waterways, taking into account the man-made dams that have altered the natural flow of those local rivers. It also references Te Huikao, which is a river branch in central Otago, and it's also a channel between Harrington Point and Aramoana Spit at the entrance of Otago Harbour. So that's the background of Te Huika Wai.
Oh, thank you very much. Any questions? No? Perfect. So what I thought we might do is break this into manageable chunks. Would somebody like to move A, receives the report and accepts the level of significance, and B, notes the Cromwell Community Board's recommendation? Thank you, Sarah and Curtis. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. We will now move to C, deciding the English name for the new facility in Cromwell. Do you guys want to speak to that? Or do we feel we've got it covered?
Yeah, I think so. Unless yeah, it's
Perfect. So the recommendation from the Cromwell Community Board is the Cromwell Memorial Events Centre, and I will open that up to the floor for discussion, debate. Not any questions to be answered on that one, but who would like to begin? Stu.
I may be old and boring and a stickler for what was there in the past, I guess. We submitted over a long period of time. This is a big chunk of work. And some of this work was done before most of the executive committee. I thought about this a lot. It's probably only Martin and I for a start. And then Cheryl came on. And it became a big topic. And I'm looking around some of the staff, maybe Julie may have been here, and that'd be about it. At that process, it started off with the rebuild at $13 million for the Cromwell Memorial Hall. And in that discussion, all along was, is it going to be a name change? Is it going to be a dual name change? Is it going to be that? No, we're building a building on the same place, and it's a Cromwell Memorial Hall. And we submitted and talked all the time about that. And I know, and Tracy and I had those discussions, what's it going to be called? I mean, and I just feel, and I'm not taking away from the facility because it is absolutely magnificent. And if we were true to a consultation, that's what it should be called. And I'm going to say that as the facility grew out of the ground, for a word, it got massaged into being something that probably always going to be. But I just felt that staff were massaging the word smithing to try to change the narrative for marketing. And when you fly into Queenstown, you're going to go to Cromwell to listen to 660 at the amazing facility, and you probably don't care what the name is. So my old way is that we consulted on that. It was in the mix and relatively close, and I definitely would be jumping up and down if the word memorial was not in there in some shape. And Ara has touched on that magnificently well. I think that's for me, and I've got a great uncle that flew in the Second World War as a bomber, and his name is on that cenotaph. And I'm not going to die in the ditch over not having the hall, the word hall, but I just think it's important. And, I'll go back to former councillors McKinley and Gillespie. So that we submitted on the hall when it should be the hall. But I know it's a lot of a hall. It's a different hall. But I just want to state for the record in time that we fought steps all the way to get it, and the magnificent facility leading into the future. And I get the answer why you want to have a name change, but I just think it was probably, that's what we submitted on. That's what the people voted on. That's where the tension was. And as a result of that, district-wide funding came in. It triggered a lot of switches. I will be supporting the name Cromwell Memorial. Probably might be a lone duck in that, but I just want to stick to the friends that have gone in the past before, because that's what it was.
Sure.
Just to take your point a little bit further, as we said before, yes, we submitted and we went to the public, our community, about the Cromwell Memorial Hall, and we were rebuilding it, but we didn't
consult on a $45.8 million building at the time. It was called, that was when we were consulting for the hall. So this has morphed way beyond a hall. This is actually a facility that offers a cinema, an entertainment centre. It's got a museum. It's got a cafe. It's got, you know, it's multiple, as well as an event centre. So, you know, realistically, we have to now move with the times. We have to acknowledge what it actually is now. And we didn't, at the time when we went out to consult, we didn't ask about having a dual name either. So, I mean, effectively, we've done a lot without consulting. So I think we have to recognise what it is now, today, and what it has to mean for our community and how we actually get people to use it. And the only way you can actually promote it to outside of Cromwell is to say it is an event centre. It is no longer a hall. The word memorial is great because it actually sits in the memorial gardens, the Cromwell Memorial Gardens. It is the Cromwell Memorial Event Centre. It takes it further. It remembers those that have gone in the past, but it is new and therefore has to be recognised for the purpose that we have built it for, and that is to bring big events here and for our community to use it.
Yeah, given this a lot of thought. Or obviously the paper came to us to read, which is before we had all the information from the community. And firstly, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has submitted, because it is, despite the fact that, you know, we still make the decision, it is actually really great to hear that. And we certainly have heard a lot of stuff online and also from people in general. But there's a famous quote from Shakespeare, it's in a name, and which is out of Romeo and Juliet. And I guess, and this is a little bit back to go forwards, a name doesn't define the essence of the thing. Okay, so, and when you think about what's going on for that facility, it is actually a collection of a whole lot of different things, like Cheryl was saying. It's not a decision about whose identity or whose function within that centre is actually more important than anyone else. It's a real big collection. And I don't think we potentially are ever going to land on one name that is going to capture everything for everyone. And I do like the idea of inclusion of Central Otago, but I also like the inclusion of Memorial. But and I agree with what Anna said earlier, that Central Otago Memorial is certainly not the right words to use, and it doesn't for me personally, it doesn't fit. So I'm interested to hear what everyone else has to say. I'm really conscious that the rest of the community, thank you to Cromwell for building the facility, and thank you for Central Otago as a whole for carrying it on. But I just wanted to acknowledge what we've just heard from Aroha in relation to the dual naming. It talks to the historical, the cultural, the civic, and the functional purpose. It recognises that there's more than one history, despite some of the rhetoric. And I also think it has a forward-looking approach, and I think the name is beautiful. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But yeah, thank you to everyone for submitting. We'll see how we go at the end.
I'm a bit of a sucker, a bit of a traditionalist, royalist, all of those crazy things. And I really hear what you're saying, Stu. And I really like having that link in the lineage going back from a Memorial Hall. But in this case, I really think this name, and with just the nuance of event centre, helps to create and give it its best chance to go forward. and it's still got the word Cromwell Memorial in there. And then with Event Centre in there, it's helping to hopefully create its new history without forgetting the old history. Yeah, so I can really see what you're saying, and I would really go that way. But given having been through it when it was half finished and been blown away by what is inside it, sort of where I'm leaning. Obviously, haven't been part of all the history behind in all those years before, but yeah, that's where I'm at.
Any other comments?
I'd like to say something, yeah. I'm a bit old school as well, actually, and I'm so old school that I actually sat down and read every single one of those submissions. And
After you printed them out first, I bet.
that's right, I did. Yeah, I cut a couple of trees down to do it.
David could do your deal.
Yeah.
Can't say that.
I actually went through all the responses, 611 of them, and it's pretty obvious actually that, I mean, I've got the numbers here, I've written them all down. The number of people that actually mentioned the word centre, the number of people that mentioned Cromwell, the number of people that mentioned memorial and events, and they're far and away the biggest numbers, without any doubt whatsoever. And Tracy's point about giving it a lot of thought, I think we have to give credit to the people that actually did those submissions, because they would have given it a lot of thought as well. Okay, there were a few emotional comments, you know, from some people who were so very attached to the old hall. But most people thought very deeply about this, and that's what they submitted, and that's what they wanted. And I think that the recommendation that came from the community board just sums up what everybody is thinking, everybody is hoping, and that's my view. Stick with that.
The opportunity for more discussion when we get to the next aspect, but does anybody else want to say anything?
Can I just speak on behalf of the community board, just to reiterate what Anna said before, but obviously that I'm part of that group. And I think it's actually quite funny that the thing we're sticking on now is what the collection of rooms is going to be known as, because the thing from community board's perspective was whether a memorial was part of the name or whether the gardens and the RSA room carried enough memorial, and is it a memorial because it's not the old building anymore. And it's funny that we've now gone to the other end of it, and it's actually what the collection of facilities and rooms are known as together, which I don't think was really that important to us. Potentially it was the locator, the ownership and the memorial aspect, and this worked completely alongside but without any consultation with Okaha's process. And I think what they've come up with is as close to the Te Reo version of what the public have told us without us ever talking about that together. So I think actually what we've come up with in the feedback pretty much aligns. That's as literal a translation as you can get, a collection of rooms, facilities, whatever it is, and the remembrance. Memorial is stuck out as being the one thing that we didn't know if it needed to be in there or not. We obviously heard from some groups. Memorial is without a doubt staying in the name. Therefore, Cromwell has to, like Jay said, you can't have the Central Otago Memorial because it's Cromwell soldiers on those. So now it's the Cromwell Memorial. What's next? I don't think that's the important bit to the legacy. To be honest, I think, like Nathan said, that's the marketable bit. That's the bit we've got to move forward with to sell it. I don't think you'd get a conference looking at the Cromwell Memorial Hall in the same way those people look at an event centre. I think that's just a direct marketing thing, but I don't think that detracts at all from what it was, what it's become, all that story. So I think the gardens are incredible. I think going in there and seeing that ceremony on Saturday, there isn't a single person, I'm sure he's watching, but David George, you cannot tell me you were not impressed, because that was awesome. And that's what we've been after, to do it justice and do it right. But now we've got to do the same for that building to get the money in, so the ratepayers aren't burdened by it. And in that way, we might not be calling it the Central Otago Hall, but we're doing justice to the Central Otago ratepayers by offsetting that cost. I think we've asked for feedback. People really engaged. People were really passionate. This is our chance to say, we heard you, we respect you. This process is robust and we're doing it for a reason, not just thanks, but we're still going to make that decision. I think it's time to respect what we've heard. Ties in so well with that Te Reo. I think the biggest decision for us now is which order they come in, how we write it and what we call it. And is Te Puna its working name, and then the Cromwell Memorial Event Centre is its descriptor. I think they work really well together. So the community board, we've had this conversation, I don't know how many times. I'm really comfortable that we've ended in a really good place with that. And I'm really confident that the people we've heard from and the people we haven't heard from, because those are the ones you hear loudest from, the people that aren't happy. And we didn't hear that. So what we've got in front of us, I think it works really well. And I would love to say that I would be the first to say, please let me move that. And let's put that name out.
Second that.
I thought that might be the case, and I'll just comment on that, probably what surprised me was the number of people from outside of Cromwell who were also really enthusiastic about the name being Cromwell and not Central Otago.
Yeah.
The submission process was open to everybody in our district. And we did receive some submissions from every part of our district, which was great. Maybe not as many as we would have liked, but then Bob would have needed a few more pieces of paper to print out all his submissions to go through. So on that basis, for C, decides that the English name is to be Cromwell Memorial Event Centre. Sarah's going to move that. Bob will second it. All those in favour? Against? You got that recorded?
Yes, please.
Yep. Carried. Thank you very much. We are now going to the next part, deciding the order of the dual name. And I'm really pleased that Sarah, I think, nailed it. Araha, if you are still listening, thank you so much. I think it's great that you highlighted that this wasn't just a local Papakapu Runaka plucking a name off a shelf and going, here you go. This also required a huge amount of debate and discussion at their end. As she noted, a name change partway through because perhaps what they had previously wasn't quite the right fit. But when you look at the pools of frozen water, the pools of bountiful resources, the pools dug by the hand of man, and the word that means to remember, I don't think there could be a more fitting name for that facility when it comes to our Te Reo name. And we were also gifted an additional name at the blessing of Te Puna Roimata for the Pounamu Greenstone touch point at the Memorial Gardens, which is Pool of Tears. So just the flow on between the name for the museum, which we'll touch on after this one, just all ties in so well together and has created something that's truly beautiful that people can feel proud of. But I am happy to, whether you want to go around the room or if people just would like to comment on which particular order they think that the names should be in. We have purposefully left this open and this is a council decision. Nobody wants to say anything first? No? Okay. Bob.
You can. Okay. Well, I'm going back to what I said earlier on, and that is that I read every single submission. And there were only 23 submitters who suggested a Maori name and that it should come first. There were several other submitters who suggested a Maori name, but all of them actually said that they would like a Maori name, but the English name should come first. So I think we have to acknowledge the fact that there's not really a great appetite for the Maori name to come first, just from the feedback that we've received from the community.
Charlie.
My understanding is that the Maori name is for open spaces. So I don't see the point in putting it on a hall.
Dual naming is a policy for open spaces.
For open spaces, yes.
So this is our council said that we wanted to receive a gifted name, but because of that policy does tie into open spaces, that's why this council was deciding which name comes first. Cheryl.
This is a question more than anything else. I thought that if you were gifted a name name, that it was rude not to put it first. Now, I don't know if that's correct or not. Perhaps, Peter, you could possibly.
Is Araha still online?
Yep.
Araha, you might wish to answer that one.
Yeah, I'm still here. Is it rude to not put it first? I mean,
You know what I'm meaning is in terms of if we ask you to, or if you've been asked to provide a name, is it impolite to then put it second as opposed to first? Just the.
it's not impolite, but it is also up to your community, and I suppose what it can do is devalue the name, but by putting it second. But it is also your prerogative and your community to decide what order it goes in. I guess there's other examples of event centres. I'm just thinking of the one that's in Balclutha. That one is called I can't remember. Yeah, and so that one has the Te Reo Māori name first, and then it has the Balclutha Memorial Event Centre, whatever the English name is second. Yeah, there's Te Pai in Christchurch. There's many examples, but I know that this is a different community, and you need to make that decision yourselves.
Stu here. You'll be well aware of the spelling of the Miniatoto and the discussions we had then. While I think the name is amazing, do you think the Central Otago community has the appetite, especially in the rural parts, hasn't had so much interaction with Te Reo naming of parts, where it'll be an interesting conversation, especially when we saw the divisiveness in the Miniatoto over the spelling.
And I think this is quite different. This is a new name for a new facility. I do wonder, which was remiss of me not to begin at the start, but the chair of the community board is still here. And I know you didn't get an opportunity when the community board discussed this. You guys weren't discussing what the Te Reo name might be. Would you like to join our table and give your thoughts, Anna, as the chair of the community board? Sure.
I'll grab another seat.
I can bring it as well.
Okay.
Can I just answer Stu's question? So in terms of the appetite for Te Reo naming in your community, I know within Cromwell there's a lot of migrant communities and like different people coming in from various places. And so it's different to the rural communities, kind of, the rural farming communities where it might be kind of more, people have been there for generations, right? So I actually think it's an opportunity to open up a conversation around what Te Reo naming looks like within Central Otago, and it would be a bold and brave move for you guys to put that first and champion it, and I guess stick behind it. So that's just my view. That's not Ōkaha's view, but that's my own personal view. I guess we've got new generations of children coming up and coming through, and they are learning Te Reo Māori, and they are learning the stories and histories of the land. And so for me, I think it's a good thing to put a Te Reo name into a rural community. Anyway, I'll stop talking now.
Thank you, Anna.
I love the name. I think it's been very, very carefully chosen, and it is succinct and rich and meaningful. And I think that makes it very special. I'm talking the Te Reo name that we have in front of us. And I think it does encapsulate the whole notion of the junction, of Te Wairere, the falling waters, of the Mata'o and the Kawaro, as well as that notion of Lake Dunstan as being the pool dug by the hand of man. And so I think it's a really poignant name. Now, I'm comfortable with whichever way this council chooses to put it round. I think Cromwell Memorial Events Centre Te Puna Mahara sounds great. I think Te Puna Mahara Cromwell Memorial Events Centre sounds great. I think that the inclusion of the name is the most important factor there. I do think that we've probably all watched a lot of rugby over the weekend at Te Kara. We may have been to a conference or two at Te Pai in Christchurch. Those are two examples of names that have come that way. Te Papa was mentioned earlier. Takina in Wellington's another example. They've all got an English name, and because they've been named in succinct ways in Te Reo that have real meaning, those Te Reo names the communities have picked up on them, and that is what they're calling those spaces. I was talking to one of my new staff members this week, and she has a sister who lives in Balclutha and who had been to the movies, and she said to, "Oh, where did you go? Did you head through to Dunedin, or what did you do?" She said, "No, we went to the," and she used the Te Reo name for the Memorial Centre in Balclutha as well. So I think when it hits right, it becomes a really important name. And to some extent, order that we put it in, our community will make that call for themselves as they start using the space. Sorry, that wasn't very helpful.
No, it's you to be able to share
neutral.
Touching on what Anna said with Te Papa, it is Museum of New Zealand, Te Papa Tongarewa.
Yeah.
And everyone knows it as Te Papa, right?
Yeah.
So like you say, the community will
call it the Cromwell Memorial Hall forevermore.
Yeah.
What I might do is just do it because I'm aware that we are really tight for time and this is really important. So I'm going to do a quick round the room, and if you can just share your thoughts and anything that you think as to whether you would like to see the Te Reo name first or the English name first. And I'm going to start with you, please, Tracy.
One of the things that came through when, like Bob, I didn't print them out, Bob, but I did read through those. Oh, you didn't? Glad to hear it. Save the trees. There was a real appetite from people to keep it simple. So on that basis, for me, and I hear what Anna's saying, but for that basis, and in the spirit of what we, as councillors, we said we're going to try and be bold. For me, I would put the Maori name first.
Yep, Te Reo first.
Martin.
Te Reo first.
Te Reo second.
Second.
I was writing my notes down, Tracy, and I was right down bold as just before you said it. Yeah, I think this has developed into so much bigger than what I was to start with. I think we should be bold. To me, Te Reo first. There's a lot more about what our community can be rather than just what it is now. So, first.
Just what I said earlier on, I think the community has spoken, and I think the community wants the English name first.
Yeah. With respect to what Bob said, I agree that that's what people have asked for. I think it's a really difficult thing to ask people to comment on when they didn't know what the Te Reo was, though. And for me, my decision's been made in my head, seeing what it is and how it works together and what I've called it to myself, and I was thinking about it. I think it needs a label and a description, and we've got both of those. They just happen to be in two different languages. One of the things we did at Community Board was talk about whether some of that feedback came back and said the junction or the Oric or those things, like give it a name and then describe it. And that Cromwell Memorial Event Centre is its descriptor, but we still considered a name, didn't we? And then when we had this in front of us and we had the English that people were leaning towards. Like, now we're going to confuse people if we go for a name and a description and a te reo. So we cut back. For me, Te Puna will be what it's shortened to, but that works. It works really well. The full name is virtually a translation. I think it's not going to be known as the Cromwell Memorial Event Centre outside of it. So being brave enough to put our foot forward and say, yep, Te Puna Mahara, that's what its working name, that's its marketable name, that's what we're selling. It goes hand in hand with the English. I don't think, while we're bedding this place in, you're never going to be able to say Te Puna, everybody knows where it is anyway. So how about we put them all on one line with a little colon in between and everybody's happy. But Te Puna first for me.
Yeah, I think we all want this building to be the best building it can be for the ratepayer and be as commercially successful as possible. So I think the branding and the marketing of this building to the national and international convention and conference and events sector is quite important. I think of the two names, Te Puna is what it'll be known as, and I think it's strong. It's a very good name. Rolls off the tongue much easier than Cromwell Event Centre. So I'm all for Te Puna being first.
Yeah, I'll be a stickler in the mud. We consulted on the Cromwell Memorial Hall. We didn't consult on dual naming. I love the word. I love the meaning of it. Araha's and her team have done a fantastic job. Well done to Araha. And I guess I understand the marketing point 100%. Absolutely do. But I do think I would have the New Zealand name, the Cromwell Memorial Event Centre, which does represent it all, brings it all together first. Because I do think by default, the partner will be what people use. But I'll go with the English version first.
On that basis, we will put it to a vote now, noting that you may have changed your view in the time that we've taken to go around the table, and you are permitted to do that. Yes,
Can I just ask one question? I mean, we've talked about marketing. I mean, do we know what effect that will have on the marketing of the event centre?
Well, there will be all sorts of different effects on the marketing, but our choice today is to have a name. A name is the best thing that you can use for marketing. So I think that's the most important.
We come to that later on when we're talking later on. Yeah, okay.
So on that, I'm happy to propose that D be thanks Papatipu Runaka for the gifting of Te Puna Mahara, and decides that the te reo name will be, and then Cromwell Memorial Event Centre will follow. And we might do a show of hands, please, so we can note how many we actually have over the line. Yeah, so I'm happy to move it. Thank you, Tracy. You got that down? Do you need me to repeat it? Thanks, Papatipu Runaka, for the gifting of Te Puna Mahara. Decides that the Māori name will go first, followed by Cromwell Memorial Centre. Noting that it does not make either name more important or less important than the other. It is just the order of the names. Moved it. Tracy has seconded it. All those in favour? Against? Great. Would you guys like that noted? Yeah. Chair will.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And then D authorises the chief executive to do all that is necessary to give effect to the resolution. Happy to move it. Sarah's happy to second that.
Oh, Gareth, you've got a signed order.
All those against. And the only other thing that we haven't covered off, do we need to formally note the te reo name for the museum?
I think if you did the same again with thanks, and yeah, with thanks for the te reo name of the museum.
And on that note, when the name was released to the Cromwell Museum, Martin Anderson, who's the museum chairperson, spoke incredibly movingly about the gift of the name, and the museum are thrilled name that has been chosen. So that's important to note, I think, as well, when you're hearing it and you're not sure whether or not they know. And very much, team, I'm going to go back and do my job. Lovely work. I think that's really a really positive result.
Tracy.
Yeah, just because I was looking over Nathan's shoulder when he was looking at the signage. It was the noticeable thing, and I don't know what the design for the actual, however it's going to look on the wall, but I think an interest for everybody in the community, the sizing and the font of the word should be exactly the same between the two. There shouldn't be one bigger, one smaller. It needs to be exactly same size and font, please. I don't know.
Well, and I think it also that's going to fall to the design team to come up with it, because we want something that looks amazing.
Oh yeah, I'm not worried about the design, but I just think it needs to be
Equal.
Work through that.
And if you look at the memorial area, the ode in English and the ode in Te Reo, exactly the same font in the same location.
The English comes first there.
So did you want to, Anna spoke very well. Yes, Martin was thrilled on behalf of the Cromwell Museum Trust, and it was really great to hear that.
I think a resolution to accept the name with thanks.
Gives thanks to Renaka for the gifting of Te Hawaii as the name for the Cromwell Museum art. Building.
Facility.
Yeah. Happy to move that. Thank you, Tracy's happy to second it. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank
Now you can go away and figure out how we're going to quickly get our signage done before they open back. Thank you.
And pay for it.
Sarah, back to you, and I'm sorry I'm handing back to you a little bit over time, but I know you'll run a very tight ship.
Let's go. Right, now we've given it a name, let's make some money.
She's not sure if she'd already left. Much appreciated.
Oh, yeah. 26.4.6, the newly named event centre. Let's set some fees and charges and let it pay for itself. Over to you, Will.
Thanks, Sarah. Just introduce Will Harris, everybody. He's our not so new venue director, started late last year. His family moved down from Wellington to join us, and he's doing an epic job bringing all of this together. So, Will, this is our council. Council, meet Will. And
Some of this have met already.
I'll let him pick up and take the paper.
So the purpose of the report is to consider the fees and charges for Te Puna Mahana, the Cromwell Memorial Event Centre. And the recommendations are that the council receives the report and accepts the level of significance, authorises that the attached fees and charges be accepted for the first year of operation, and notes that this is not an exhaustive list, and directs staff to continue to develop fees and charges as the operation of the venue evolves. So in terms of a background, this has been through the Cromwell Community Board a number of times. It even started before I actually started, and it's been back and forth with some kind of great advice. As I said before, that the list is not exhaustive, and that's because we're still confirming things like the commercial caterer and things like that. So as we develop and as we start to operate, there will be more fees and charges as we go. The board also provided early direction that the venue should be accessible and welcoming for community use, and that in the first year of operation, the focus will be on celebrating the new facility and encouraging broader community engagement with a target utilisation of 70% community use and 30% commercial use. And the venue's funding model aligns with other council community facilities as well, in terms of cost recovery and user fees. And in terms of performance indicators that we're going to use, we're going to look at revenue and expenses, occupancy, utilisation rates, attendance numbers, community engagement and feedback, and also highlights and opportunities along the way once we open. So we've developed a schedule of fees and charges across the spaces, and to be honest with you, it'll be figuring out as we go exactly what's working and what isn't. And so there's things within the fees and charges at the moment. We have inclusions. I imagine just from my experience that those things will change as we go. So for an example might be, we might get a huge influx of conferences, and that may change the way in which we structure the pricing for conferences, because they might want a higher level of service in terms of AV delivery. They might want 20 screens, we only have 2. So that's just an example of how things might evolve as we go. In terms of parameters, the fees and charges, we've looked at a tiered pricing model. So we've gone for commercial hire, so that's the kind of higher end of things. Tier 1 rates, which is CODC, local business events, private event hire. We've slid in there an activation discount just to give us a little bit of leeway in terms of trying to attract people to the region. Again, in my experience, we need to start by doing. We can't just build it and expect people to come. We need to try and encourage people to come here. And one way to do that is give discounted rates to certain industries or parts of entertainment circuit. And then we have some tiered community rates. So the community 1 rates are for ticketed community events. And then also for the community 2 is non-ticketed free or by donation events as well.
I think as well, just on the community rates, this table has seen a few of those already that have come from CCB, and you have resolved those. There's not too much change to those there. Today, the community board asked us to go away and sharpen our pencil on the commercial rates, and that's really what we've been doing a lot of work with the community board on the last few months, and that's sort of what you're considering here today is the next evolution. Yeah. And just to Will's point, the financial model that we built for the LTP, which we are operating under from the 1st of July for the first 2 years, the fees and charges that we have are sort of in line with that as well to the rates component versus the rates component. Apart from that, I think we could probably take the report as read.
Any questions?
Sorry.
Yeah, part C of the recommendations, that evolution, really good to hear and see. And also just really encourage you, I'm sure you'll be doing this anyway, but keeping a finger on the pulse with community group affordability.
Yep.
And I guess you're not going to get a feel for that until they start approaching you and you go, oh, it's going to be $200 for this. And they'll be like,
that's one of the, I did the community piece first and got that across the line as we had a lot of people book things, and the sort of the key times of booking the dance studio are almost full now. So, it's been quite good to have some of those fees and charges already in play for us to be able to start accepting those things. And they seem to be hitting them where the community wanted them.
And one thing the community board actually asked in the meeting when we did discuss this was that we keep a record of inquiries that don't translate into bookings as well, so we can see what isn't coming as much as what is, because what is coming, they're obviously happy with the fees, but what isn't is probably more important to set that tone. So
and if they don't come, whether they can provide you a reason
as to why, yeah, just so we can work all that out. As
good news. Thank you.
Yeah.
My question was just simply, I'm not sure whether it's covered under this, but I was just simply asking about how the events are going to be ticketed, large events in the auditorium.
At the moment, we're looking, there's a booking event system called Bookable that the IS department is looking into that has a ticketing functionality. The difficulty with choosing a provider straight away is that it can cut you out of certain touring circuits. So, for example, if you go for a Ticketek, then you might rule out something like Live Nation. So it's easier to start with a bit of a clean slate and then figure out the appetite and choose different platforms depending on the activity we want to attract. Okay.
Yeah, well, and obviously you've done from startup experience with other places.
Yep.
I'm really interested to hear how you think this is going to be received by our community, especially some of those smaller community groups that perhaps use the hall back in its day, and now it's evolved into something quite different, and the perception of what they would be able to use, and then they see the fees and charges.
Yeah, I think that's a large part of my job is the expectation management, because there's a culture with some of the venues that the council has that you pay your $20 and there's the key and go for it. Whereas with a facility like this, we obviously can't do that for a number of reasons. There's very expensive equipment, but the health and safety risks are a lot higher. I see these fees and charges as a starting point. So for example, if we have a low community rate, but there's no community uptake, we need to ask the question, what are we doing wrong? How are we managing expectations wrong? So that's why I kind of see it as a starting point. And we want the community to use it. So if people are coming and then they're not taking us, we're going to have discussions with them to go, what are we doing wrong? What can we do better?
And I guess my next question is from and I'm not sure whether Business South has given any input into this, whether there is a opportunity for new businesses and, startups, so to speak, maybe Startup Central, is to be able, that's a different rate again, to be able to create something to, because obviously you've got your community rates, but if it's a commercial entity, but it's on a different end of their journey as opposed to their full commercial hire, how that would figure out.
That's why then the activation discount is in there, to have a little bit of discretion. Because you can't put every single fee and charge on a piece of paper. There has to be that discretion with community, but also with those businesses. They might be commercial, they might be of a small scale, but they want to scale up and it's going to benefit the region. Of course, we're going to have a discussion and see what we can do to make it happen.
So what you're saying is that if there was someone in the community listening in right now that wanted to essentially think about something but saw the rates and were freaking out, they could still contact you and say, this is what I'm doing. Can we have a discussion?
The whole point of the accessibility with the 70-30% split is to get people to come and talk to us. And that could be, hey, I've got this crazy idea, I want to do this event. Or it could be, I've got this little startup and I want to attract local businesses. How can we work together to make that happen?
Or it could be someone who wants to have a Christmas function, and they want to book it out just for all their own employees, so there's enough pricing flexibility to have a really good discussion with people. And if there are heaps of people listening, we would love for them to reach out and just have a conversation. Because, I guess council fees and charges in general is, tens, if not hundreds of pages long, and it can be a bit confusing too. So being it's a new facility, definitely reach out. We'll start to build a bit of a team. We've got that capacity to have those conversations. So, yeah.
There's a question, word you used before, we want people to use the facility, you need people to use the facility.
Yes.
I guess that's one thing about this table, it has to start making some money to recoup some of the cost, because that cost is spread across the whole base. For the tourist aspect of the museum part, are we putting a tourist fee?
No, the recommendation sits with the museum. They have had that discussion, and in the first year, I'm sure they'll circulate this, but in the first year they want to see how it goes.
But are we in the mode of see how it goes, and we've got a facility that has to have a cost back to the ratepayer, and knowing that Kawara Gorge might have 170,000 people, and the first thing, if everything works out and they get off their bike with their sore bottom and then say, where do we go? We want to go to the museum in a beautiful brand new facility. Why would we not be trying to tap them for $10 on a volunteer and a tourist levy of 170? Potentially, most of those people on that bike, if it's done correctly, and while in Cromwell, go and have a look at our beautiful facility, our beautiful museum, our beautiful gardens, we wouldn't be tapping into a capture of money, because ultimately that's one of the quickest ways we'd be able to do that. And I don't think we're in the mode at our 4% cap to say, let's wait and see. Although in the commercial world, you wouldn't build a brand new fish and chip shop and give them fish and chips the first 6 months, and let's wait and see if they like them.
Yeah. I mean, you do have your 6-month performance reviews to see if you are getting that.
I feel like I'm the grumps all day today, but I mean, we have.
I mean, there's a lot of literature out there that shows it's any fee, disincentive for people to pop in like you suggest.
Yeah, I get that.
And there's certain things, like if you go to any museum, especially the bigger ones, it's free to get into the museum, but there's certain exhibitions that you might have to pay $5.
Yeah.
And if something comes in, we've got quite a few things just sitting on our, we've got some pretty amazing exhibition things that are potentially could form part of that.
I'll store in there as well.
Yeah.
By the time they get through.
Plus a cafe.
At the side.
Yeah, I get that, right? I get all that. But for the lady whose rates are going up in Ranfurly, you're going, well, I don't get to Cornwall very often. If I do, it's only to get an osteopath about my knee. They don't really care about they want to see things work. And I guess that's my role here, is to make sure that we are exploring, and I understand that totally. But we have now probably going to have a captive market that's never been here before with that opening of that trail. And they'll be looking to do things while they wait for their bus. Well, it's a wee bit different than stopping on the traffic on the main road. And I'm just saying, is there an appetite, or is there an ability for some of them to contribute if they wish? Is another way.
You guys could have that discussion at the table here. That it's sort of, I guess, we haven't been given that guidance around charging for that in the first couple of years. So, I mean, it's something you wanted us to go away and look at.
Surely they'll be running the Te Papa model where you have the box at the front saying, we suggest you donate.
Yeah, Museums Trust will have a
With
donation.
a bit of an emotive thing there that sort of makes you want to do it.
Yeah, and that's in play now for them. Yeah. The other thing as well, we are working with the Museum Trust on how we work together now. That relationship will inevitably change from being in a sole purpose location to being part of a location that has multiple community groups in it as well. And so how that works, we are working through that in the first year together, and we're looking to have a bit of a heads of agreement to understand what that looks like. So there is quite a lot of play with this too. Yeah.
So what are commercial bookings, forward bookings looking like now for the next 18 months, 2 years? Is there a lot of interest coming?
There is a lot of interest coming in, but at the moment we can't turn around to them and go, 2028 it's going to cost you X, Y, Z. So what we're doing is we're just tabling those inquiries, and then when we get more information, we'll go through with pricing and things.
And relevant to businesses or buildings of that type in Christchurch or in Wellington or other places, are we dollar value for seats or square metre? And
yes, absolutely. The challenge you've got though is that it's location. I'd love to charge Christchurch prices, but we can't, because we're not about creating barriers. We've got to get people here and get the name out there. And one of the things that we've been waiting for is actually today, so we can get the name. We're going to Meetings, which is the big conference marketplace in Auckland, in about a month or so, and now we've got the name. We'll be able to actually start selling it aggressively. Until now, it's kind of been like facility by the lake, maybe the event thing down there. But absolutely, we're going to look at part of these fees and charges were developed looking at a lot of other facilities across the country. Even before I started, these guys did a lot of visits to Wellington and Christchurch and things like that as well.
I think if you compared it to other conference type things, at least in the basin throughout Queenstown, Wanaka and all of that kind of stuff, we're there or thereabouts. And remember, this is the baseline fee and charge. They'll have everything else on top of it, where they're hiring AV gear, all of that kind of stuff is for commercial people. The building has been fitted out with a base level of technology, so community groups, can use it fairly accessibly. So, and I think just the other thing as well, the team are busy building a bit of a website in the background, building content and things like that. So now with the name being confirmed, it can kind of all start to come together. And I will, for people around the table, we only started work on this operational model sort of 12 months ago, and so it is sort of working through with the highest priority type things, so we can open the doors with a really good offering and then sort of keep nice and nimble as we go through as well.
And I guess it's hard for pricing, because while we're in our market, like you say, the Christchurch market is completely different. It's like a bed in a hotel, but it's also very hard to come off a base of $3,000 a day to $16,000 a day. So pitching it at the start right is a very hard thing to do.
Yeah, and accessibility is big. One of the things we're going to try and our goal is to be open 74 hours a week. So it's not quite swimming pool level, but it is a lot of accessibility for the community. Yeah.
How many seats would it be a seat at a?
Depending on your configuration, but in the gala hall and sort of slope seating's 400. If you're having a gala type dinner where you're dressed up in your trench coat and stuff, that's about 250-ish, depending on the kinds of tables and configuration that you get. So, and then standing for when Taylor Swift comes, around about 500 at the time, 500-600.
It actually can seat less people in the old hall.
No, what was the old hall?
350.
Depending on how it was laid out, wasn't that in classroom style? The 350, I thought.
Bone tables.
Was it, I guess if you went herringbone, you could go more again. So I'm talking gala, fine dining, dinner at two, big round tables and things like that. So if you went herringbone, you'd increase it considerably, I would say. Yeah.
And the ability to use all the different spaces. So you might be able to have 400 in the rate seating. They head into one of the other spaces for a glass of wine and a beer. And then when they come back, the seating block's been retracted and we've got, like you say, herringbone tables out for them to have a dinner.
The total facilities 990 is where we're sitting for, really that's for fire restrictions, but 990 for the meeting one time.
In that case, in front of us, it's received the report. It's authorised that the attached fees and charges be accepted for this first year of operation. And note that this is not an exhaustive list and direct staff to continue to develop fees and charges as the operation of the venue evolves. So, have a move it. Curtis, seconder, Bob. All in favour? Any against? Carried. There you go.
Thanks. Welcome.
In the interest of good time management, stay there, David. Gordon, come join in.
Gordon will make some time up. Here we go.
Excellent. Talk quick. Back down to good game, Gordon. 6.4.7, the proposed air quality monitoring station in Table Park, Alexander.
Yeah, so this is somewhat an interesting application. So as I've outlined in the report, it's quite difficult to cleanly put this into the Reserves Act as a something that fits the purposes of the Reserves Act, that being a recreational based activity. So I think the council, with its hat on as and its delegation hat on from the Minister of Conservation, probably needs to think about first that issue. Do they want to shoehorn it in? And if they do that, then you probably potentially risk some, if it goes right through the process, some review of that process. Not. And then I guess the other thing I need to say that within the report, there's some photos there, but that's just what that was one with the one in Christchurch, which is the preferred one for the ORC, which would have this Reporticon, but they're pulled back. And for this application, they can see that's probably not going to fly anyway. So what we're talking about would be a 2 metre by 1 metre by about 3 metre tall, by 1.8 metre tall box, plus some smaller individual boxes, which is outlined in the report, figures 4, 5 and 6. So I guess that's the discussion council probably needs to have. That it's reluctant to give too much guidance on that because it's really needs to be the authority making the decision, make the decision how it should fit.
This came before the Vincent Community Board last month.
Yeah.
I'm pretty disappointed in this. It just kind of feels like it doesn't fit the Reserves Act. If we were to put something like this, even if you set aside the fact that they've asked it to be in the reserve, which is absolutely ludicrous, and why would you even ask that, to then put something of that size, which is not insignificant, on what is actually quite a small residential reserve heavily utilised by the people that live there. It is a stone's throw from a large number of industrial sites where it's still fitting within, hey, it might not be perfectly within their little circle, but I'm sure some allowances can be made. I haven't seen anything in there that indicates that they've looked at other sites. And I actually have some real reservations around the fact that it does not appear to be consistent with the Reserves Act. And I would suggest that they need to go away and do some more work.
And the other thing is we've just had at council the containers on reserves.
Yes, exactly.
And we now have that on them.
Yeah.
So it feels very much like double standards. I agree with everything the mayor said.
Excuse me for not knowing, where exactly is that reserve? Just up here?
Alexandra, this way, is it?
Right along Boundary Road, going down to the dump, and that's kind of over on the.
Right. Cool.
In the dump,
So
in the river.
I have had issues before in the mighty Ranfurly with regional council air monitoring, and they tried to shift it from school. Now, why would it not be at the airport where we have facilities where actually all of that other stuff is measured anyway. And my argument for the regional council, and it might be looking at the wrong way, is that they are shifting to suit the air quality of which they want us to have.
Yes.
Now, if you have it at the school, will be the clearest air in this town. If you have it at the airport, which is relevant to everything else, why isn't it there? And they're the issues that I have, with air quality, and Ranfurly took it from the school and put it down by the dump. And my analogy then was, if you want to test for rubbish, go to the dump. So get it to the airport where you've got plenty of room up there and it doesn't make a difference. And I
want residential particulars.
Yeah, that's well, there's residential out there as well.
And that's why one of the reasons they proposed to put it there is because it actually is in a recognised area which has got the highest particulate matter in the air.
That's what I said. If you want to go and test for rubbish, go to the dump.
You put it up at the